already claimed 10,000 of lives, displaced upward of 2 million people, expired feared wars in the ahead. With the political power of Africa, second largest nation of 115 million people at stake, Ethiopia federal government remain at odds with the fighter from northern Tigray region known as the Tigray People Liberation Front, TPLF, who have been steadily advances south toward the capital Addis Ababa since early October. Yeah, what you mean that this bleak is a moment, Taria Osteba, on associate professor at the Center of African Studies, University of Florida, told the Yahoo News in Ministers, it seems like nobody early wanted to negotiate. It may end up being one that is victorious and the battlefield in the one that wins. So when and how the happens is being questioned. So the reason for the war drive from Tigray opposition to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, so in 2019 Nobel Peace Prize winner, who rise to power in 2018, thanks in large part to support from country largest groups. The Oromo ethnicity, the group had long felt ostracized in countrywide politics, and Abiy Oromo himself positioned himself in fix that. Before then, the TPLF controlled the country politics for 2027 years, and Abiy had once been part of the government. Since winning the election, however, Abiy had ruled at his own terms, seeking to squeeze TPLF into his power and influence across the country. So, Tigray forces formed in TPLF in 1975, in the ideal liberation and revolution. The group centered itself as a rebel organization with a deep sense of national identity. It took 16 years of the TPLF to rise in national prominence, and his nearly 30 years reign is frustrating in less than 30 months. The rebel fighter held their own election in September 2020 in defense of Abiy. Internal Ethiopia leader cut off funding into the region. So TPLF force responded by attacking military bases in Tigray in November of last year and loaded weapons, which led Abiy in order to military offensive against Tigray leaders, launching the civil war. 1 year later, the fighting had only intensified, spilling into other parts of the country as peace talks have taken back seat in the power struggle. Tales of gang rape of more than a dozen women are recently in August, and murders of innocent citizens and the starvation of millions have plagued in the conflict, further threatening the stability of the entire region. So, a path toward progress for many appears doubted. This is really conflict between elites, not conflict between people. Source familiar with the nuances of Ethiopia conflict in the ground told the Yahoo News. So the source agreed to speak under condition of enmity, fear, retribution of the ground amid the ongoing conflict. It has been sparked by leaders who are pushed passage to serve their agenda. The source added some of the rhetoric in both sides has been kind of dehumanizing rhetoric and that is see before genocide take place in my side of the Ethiopia is a multi-ethnic country with interethnic conflict that spanned decades, but this civil war was felt terrifying, different in fighting in the past, reminding many of the Rwanda genocide, where for about 100 consecutive days in 1994, an estimated 800,000 people were killed by ethnic Houthi extremists. The mostly Tutsi victims were targeted for their ethnicity and political affiliation. Fearing reprisals of the outlawing, thousands of Ethiopians have fled of Sudan, marking what experts say this wars exhaust the country has seen into decades. The testimonies we heard from survivors described despicable acts of TPLF fighters that amount to war crimes and potentially crime against humanity, reports Kens. Cold Wars, Amnesty International Secretary General, the defeating morality or indeed idiot of the humanity. So atrocities have been committed by both the TPLF and the Ethiopian forces. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission of the Office of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights found in joint investigation. Fighters for the TPLF last Friday say they will target foreign mercenaries and the technical experts support the Ethiopian government they were seeking to overthrow. So we didn't care what their nationality is. And the TPLF spokesperson Getachew Reda told Reuters, "We will hunt them down. They will be treated like mercenaries. They are American, and the British citizens have been urged to leave Ethiopia." So Ethiopian government is doing outside, doing all it can to suffocated to TPLF by the solving of basic resource and access to the outside world. Communication network have also been cut off, banks are closed. Fuel is scarce in the few hospitals that are open have been forced to run generators. Millions of Ethiopians, as a result, have had their lives drastically affected. More than 400,000 people are facing starvation and famine. by in their honors, according to BBC report, and the vast majority of essential medicine is unable to reach a region for those in need. So Ethiopian government of officials are accused of preventing aid from reaching areas in and around the northern Tigray region that need to climb the dams. So international humanitarian groups that are ready to provide aid to those who need it most have been frustrated by the lack of access to region. Ethiopia authorities detained 70 trucks delivering aid to the region last week, according to the United Nations, after previously arrested 16 local United Nations supporters. Since July, more than 400 trucks with aid have been entered Tigray. Only 38 have been returned, according to United Nations officials. So, this is an extremely difficult environment to work in, as we have seen intensification of the fighting. Aliona Sinorko, the regional spokesperson in Africa for International Committee of the Red Cross, told the Yaonet News. So, since August, ACRC does deliver emergent material in more than 100,000 people in the surrounding Tigray communities and deliver food into 18 areas hospital. But with a population of 6 million people in Tigray alone, the aid secures this for pulse in comparison to the actual needs. An estimated 7 million people remain in need for more help. As humanitarian workers see that needs are so big, it's difficult to reach all the people who urgently need this humanitarian assistance in frustrating, Sinarco said. Oxfam International, another humanitarian aid group that has been working in Ethiopia since the early 1970s, is calling for the escalation of the fighting to help innocent citizens in their need support. No matter how you measure this crisis, there is no dispute that hundreds of thousands of people are suffering in catastrophic hunger, and even more are urgent need of aid. Proving Nigel Oxfam, the regional director for Horn and East and Central Africa, said in a recent press release, Oxfam called for all parties to de-escalate the conflict and respect international law to allow humanitarian to access the most vulnerable and to make catch fuel and other services available to allow the economy to recover the response to save lives. The Ethiopian government earlier this month declared 6 months state of emergency across the international. Al Jazeera also reports that the design allow home research without warrant requires them to travel with identification allow aspect. Be detained by entirely for the declaration. The memorandum wears criticize who feel lawlessness and the looms in brewing situations that many believes would have been avoided. I think that is something that definitely could have been avoided had parties been more engaged in trying to solve these politicians. Say the University of Florida professor, and it's not necessarily about Ethiopian versus Tigray. It is political struggle between the current federal government prime minister and the regional government Tigray. It is sad that we got to this place. Many Ethiopians are now hopeful that other African leaders or international president will do what they can to kill the crisis. Senior Biden administration officials have already threatened Ethiopia with the loss of access to lucrative trade program 2022 due to human rights violations. Other African leaders